David had always been a man of routine. His life, while not perfect, was predictable. Work, home, dinner with his wife, Amy. Their marriage had been built on years of trust, mutual respect, and what David believed was an unshakable bond. Over time, though, something had shifted. The warmth that once existed between them had gradually faded, replaced by cool, distant conversations. David noticed, but never questioned it. They had been together for so long that he figured it was just one of those natural phases all marriages go through. But deep down, there was a gnawing feeling he couldn't quite shake. It was a typical Thursday evening, and David was finishing up a long day at work. He dialed Amy to let her know he'd be home soon. "Hey, just leaving the office," he said, his voice warm. "What do you feel like for dinner?" There was a slight pause before Amy responded. "I'm not sure. I'm kind of tired. Maybe we can order something?" David could hear the distance in her voice. This wasn't new. For months their conversations had been like this. Short, disinterested, void of the affection that once came so naturally between them. "Sure, whatever you want," David replied, trying to sound upbeat. "I'll see you soon. Love you." "Yeah, love you too," Amy said, almost mechanically, before hanging up. David stared at his phone for a moment, a wave of unease passing through him. He brushed it off as exhaustion. He had been working late for weeks, trying to meet deadlines and manage projects. Maybe that's all it was, stress. Maybe Amy was feeling it too. He put the phone down and headed to his car, eager to get home and put his feet up. The drive was quiet, the city lights flickering past him as he navigated the familiar route home. He had taken this same road hundreds, maybe thousands of times, but tonight, something felt different. Halfway home, he started to feel an odd tightness in his chest. It wasn't overwhelming at first, just uncomfortable. He shifted in his seat, thinking it was stress, or maybe something he ate earlier, but the tightness didn't go away. In fact, it got worse. David's breathing became shallow, and his hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. His heart raced, pounding against his ribs like it was trying to escape. Panic began to set in as the realization hit him. Something was seriously wrong. He was having a heart attack. The thought sent a surge of adrenaline through him, and he fumbled for his phone, dialing Amy's number with trembling fingers. He needed to hear her voice. He needed comfort, reassurance, something to hold on to as the world around him started to spin out of control. The phone rang once, twice. Finally, Amy answered. But there was something strange about the background noise. He could hear muffled voices, a soft laugh that didn't belong to her alone. "David," Amy's voice came through, sounding slightly out of breath. David's voice was shaky, his breath labored. "Amy, something's wrong. I think I'm having a heart attack." There was a pause, a hesitation that cut through the noise of David's panic like a knife. I'm not home right now," Amy stammered, her voice suddenly distant and nervous. "I'll call someone. Just hang in there." But in the background, David heard something he wasn't meant to. A man's voice. It was low, muffled, but unmistakably there. Then came the sound of shuffling, like someone trying to move away from the phone. David's heart wasn't just failing him physically, it was breaking. In the middle of what might be the most vulnerable moment of his life, the truth unfolded in front of him with brutal clarity. Who is that?" David managed to ask, his voice weak and pained. Silence. "Amy, who's there with you?" More silence, but this time it was filled with the weight of unspoken truths. David's mind raced, even as his body began to shut down under the strain of the heart attack. He wasn't just fighting for his life anymore. He was grappling with the sudden, crushing realization that the woman he had trusted, the woman he had built his life with, was with someone else. Amy finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "David, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. But David couldn't hear the rest. His vision blurred as the pain in his chest intensified. He felt the car slowing down as he lost control of his body, pulling over to the side of the road just in time before everything went dark. The last thing he heard before slipping into unconsciousness was Amy's frantic voice calling his name, but it was too late. Darkness enveloped him, and for a moment there was nothing. When David woke up, the world was a blur of bright lights and sterile smells. He was in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines, beeping steadily, monitoring his heart. He blinked, trying to piece together what had happened. Slowly, the events of the night came rushing back to him. The heart attack, the phone call, Amy, and the ma. "How are you feeling?" she asked, her voice shaky. David didn't respond right away. He just stared out the window, watching the world outside go on, as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed for him. His entire life had been upended in a matter of minutes. "I heard him," David finally said, his voice cold and distant. "I heard him with you." Amy flinched, tears welling up in her eyes. "David, I'm so sorry. I didn't want you to find out like that. I've been unhappy for a long time. I should have told you. I should have been honest." David turned to look at her, his expression unreadable. "And when were you going to tell me, Amy? After I died on the side of the road?" She burst into tears, but David felt nothing. No sympathy, no compassion. The woman he had loved was a stranger to him now. "I don't want to hear excuses," David said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "I just want the truth." "How long?" Amy wiped her eyes, unable to meet his gaze. "A few months," she admitted. "But it didn't mean anything, David. I was confused, and "Stop," David interrupted. "Just stop." Silence filled the room, thick and heavy. David felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. Maybe it was the medication, or maybe it was the clarity that comes from facing the truth head on. Either way, he knew what he had to do. "I can't do this anymore, Amy," he said quietly. "Whatever we had, it's gone." "You made sure of that." Amy looked at him, her eyes wide with shock and fear. "David, please don't say that. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, talk to someone." "No," David said firmly. "You can't fix betrayal. You can't fix this." Amy cried harder, but David felt nothing. He had already made up his mind. The heart attack had given him a second chance. But it wasn't with Amy. It was a second chance at life. A chance to move on and heal from the wounds she had inflicted. "I want a divorce," David said, his voice calm but final. Amy didn't argue. She knew there was no coming back from this. In the weeks that followed, David focused on his recovery. Physically, he was healing, but emotionally, it was a long road. There were days when the pain of Amy's betrayal hit him like a tidal wave, threatening to pull him under. But each day he got a little stronger, a little more sure of the path ahead. He moved out of the house they had shared and into a small apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't much, but it was his. A fresh start. Amy had tried to contact him several times, but David ignored her calls. He needed to heal on his own terms. One evening, as he sat on his balcony, watching the sunset, David took a deep breath. The weight on his chest had lifted, and for the first time in months, he felt a sense of peace. The heart attack had been a wake-up call, not just for his health, but for his life. It had forced him to confront the truth about his marriage, about the person he had been living with for so many years. And while it hurt, it had also freed him. David was still here, still alive, still breathing, and he was ready to move forward, alone, but stronger.